All right, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to be doing an album ranking of one of my favorite bands of all time, Marillion. Over the years, I have seen many album rankings regarding Marillion, and I have everything on vinyl, so I figure why not? Let's go ahead and throw myself into the mix as well. All right, so what I did for this album ranking is I took each album and I was going to do them according to my preference and how I thought I liked each album. However, I saw another album ranking on another channel that I thought was very interesting. So I took each album, I scored each song 1 to 5, and then I added up the difference, divided it by the number of songs, and then that gave me the overall total for the album itself. So I'm going to go ahead and get into these now. And it's interesting because after scoring each of the songs, it didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to. So let's go ahead and get into it. Marillion started in 1983 with their first album, Script for a Jester's Tear. This is the box set. I had an original copy way back when, but it was not in very good shape. So when the box set came out, I went ahead and got the box set and got rid of my original copy. So this album has a lot of great songs. Script for a Jester's Tear, He Knows You Know, Garden Party, Chelsea Monday. Those are some of my favorite songs off of that album. The Web, so I scored all those 5. The Web and Forgotten Sons, I scored those 3s. They're good songs. They're not my favorites. So that was a total of 26. And that gave an average of 4.33 for the album. So if I can figure this out and how to do this, this is only my second video on YouTube. So if I can figure this out, I will go ahead and add the graphics. But as of right now, that's a 4.33. Second album came out in 84. That was Fugazi. Another good album, but this is one that I didn't hear until later on. And I suppose I should preface my Marillion story. I should have done this at the beginning, but I'm sorry. I joined the Air Force back when I was a kid, and I got stationed in Germany back in 1987. And when I first got there, I was living in the dorms. And some of the guys that were there said, hey, we're going to a concert. We have an extra ticket. Do you want to go? I was like, well, who's playing? And they told me. I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't know who they were. So we went to Hanover, Germany. And basically, you know, Marillion came out and just blew me away. So I immediately, the next day, I started going around to the local shops and started looking for Marillion releases. The first one that I found was The Thieving Magpie, which was actually a live album. I'm not ranking that today, but that was the first one that I found. So I was kind of familiar with some Marillion songs from Fugazi, but mostly it was a Misplaced Childhood, Script, and Clutching at Straws. So anyway, I can say that I got to see Marillion with Fish, although I couldn't appreciate it for what it was because I had no idea who they were at the time. All I know is they had a tremendous impact on me. And so, yeah, the rest, I've been a Marillion fan ever since. Huge Marillion fan. So anyway, let me get back to the ranking. So Fugazi, it was okay. I thought it was a departure from the first album. It was a little, I don't want to say strange, but it was definitely different, right? So going back and after listening to Clutching and after listening to Misplaced Childhood, I went back and listened to Fugazi a bunch of times, and I got to tell you, I only scored this. Assassin, I gave a 4. Punch and Judy, a 3. Jigsaw, 4. Emerald Lies, 3. She Chameleon, 3. Incubus, 4. I did give Fugazi a 5, though. That's an awesome song. So anyway, that's a total of 26 divided by the 7 tracks. So that is an average of 3.71. So that's how things are stacking up at this point. Then Marillion came out with Misplaced Childhood. For those of you not familiar with Marillion, this is the one with Kaylee on it. It was a semi-hit back in the 1980s, 85. May have carried over to 86. I'm not exactly sure. Again, I wasn't really familiar with Marillion until, at least 87. Sorry, I'm moving my notes here. All right, so I gave that album 5s across the board, except for Waterhole Espresso Bongo. I gave, it was a little weird to me. It sounds like a little wooden xylophone, although it's probably Mark Kelly doing it on his keyboards. But yeah, I gave that a 4. So anyway, 10 tracks, total of 49 points. I gave that a 4.9. All right. Then came my favorite album of Marillion, Clutching at Straws. This to me is a perfect album. Everyone talks about their, desert island albums, the 5 or 10 albums that you would take with you. That's probably number 1 on my list. This is, I think, when Marillion was at their musical pinnacle. Fish, the lyrics on this album are just insane. Just all total. It flows so well. I gave everything a 5. It's a 5.0 across the board. Then these are the days, pre-internet days. I was stationed in Germany. Any albums that came out during that time frame, they were in the local magazines, and I couldn't, I don't speak German. So then this came out, and I was really excited because I was a relatively new Marillion fan. So I saw when this came out, hey, new Marillion album. So I put it on. I believe it was cassette at the time. I had a tape deck in my car. So I was driving down the road. The King of Sunset Town came on. And again, it was a slow build. The music sounded great. And all of a sudden, the singing started. I was like, what the hell is this? It wasn't, that wasn't Fish. So anyway, that was my introduction, as well as everyone else, to Steve Hogarth. Again, I think that was the music on that album was a carryover. They were just in the zone there from Clutching at Straws. A lot of it carried over to the Season's End sessions. I gave that, to me personally, that's my favorite H era album. And I gave this 5s across the board, except for Berlin. I gave that a 4. So, that's a total of 39 points with 8 tracks. So that equates to 4.875. All right. Then in 1991, they released Holidays in Eden. Sorry for the glare. They released Holidays in Eden. It's a more, I think this was their last album on EMI, if I'm not mistaken. It was a lot more poppier. It was a lot more radio friendly, if you will. It's not a bad album. I still listen to it quite a bit. There were a lot of songs on there. Splintering Heart's probably my favorite song off of that album. Gave that a 5. Cover My Eyes a 5. Dryland 5. Waiting to Happen as well. 5 as well. And then a couple of 4s on there. No One Can, Holidays in Eden, 100 Nights. It did have some 3s on it for me, though. The Party, This Town, The Rake's Progress, even though it's short instrumental. That to me was not up to par with the previous releases. So that was a total of 41 points. 10 songs, so 4.1 average on that album. Then Marillion regrouped, and I guess they reassessed what they wanted to do and what direction they came in. And then they came out with Brave. Brave, damn near a masterpiece in my eyes, although there are a couple of exceptions. When this album first came out, I was used to, again, clutching Season's End, all the previous releases. Brave was such a departure from what they had been doing. It kind of threw me for a loop. And, at the time, I've always been a big hair metal guy. I grew up on Priest and Maiden and all sorts of other things. So this album kind of, it struck me as strange. I will be the first to admit I did not like it at first. It wasn't until years later on that I revisited that album that it finally clicked with me and I got it. So I gave this album 5s across the board, except for, and this is the first time I've ever given a 2 on any song, Hard As Love. I can't stand that song. It doesn't flow with the album. It may fit the storyline a little bit. I don't like that song, nor do I like Paper Lies. If they got rid of Hard As Love and Paper Lies, that would be a 5 album for me. But it's not. So that was a total of 50 with 11 songs. So that is a 4.55 for me. Then they came out with Afraid of Sunlight. Afraid of Sunlight came out in 95. Brilliant album, very good album. I never had that as an original release, so I did get it as the box set. Beautiful is one of my all-time favorite songs. My wife, who is not a big prog rock fan, and those of you who travel around in North America to all the Marillion shows, you probably know my wife. But she comes along and she placates me to go to these events. She does it more so for the people than the music. But Beautiful is one of her all-time favorite songs. Afraid of Sunrise, Out of This World, Afraid of Sunlight, King. I gave those all 5s. I did give a couple 4s on here, Gazpacho, Beyond You. But then Cannibal Surf Babe. I do not get that song. I don't understand it. I don't understand the musical style when it's compared to the rest of the album. So I gave that a 2. So that's a total of 35 points for an average of 4.375. Then in 97, they came out with This Strange Engine. This Strange Engine is a mixed bag for me. This Strange Engine is probably one of my all-time favorite songs. Whenever they play it live, I'm like a little schoolgirl geeking out because I'm just excited that they're playing. The songs that are rated 5 on this album for me are Men of a Thousand Faces, One Fine Day, love that song. Estonia, of course. This Strange Engine. If I could give that song a 6, I would. There were a couple 4s on there. 80 Days. I appreciate it for what it is. Memory of Water, Accidental Man, I gave those 4s. Hope for the Future, big deuce. That's a 2 for me. So a total of 34 points for an average of 4.25 for that album. Next up, we had Radiation. This is actually, Radiation came out, this is a 2013 remix, blue vinyl. I struggle with this album. There were a few songs I actually gave a 1. And again, this is all my opinion. This is my musical taste. I know people may love this album, and there are other songs on here that people may disagree with me with. But again, it's just my opinion. I did give some 5s on this album though. 3 Minute Boy, always a concert favorite. Cathedral Walls, just awesome. Few Words for the Dead, great song. I gave The Answer Machine a 4. It's a good song. I did give Under the Sun and These Chains a 3. Now She'll Never Know, I gave it a 2. Coast a Little Slow, I don't even understand why that's there. Yeah. And then Born to Run, I'm sorry, I gave that a 1. If I want to listen to blues or something like that, I'll put on a blues album. That was a total of 29 points for an average of 3.22. Then we came Marillion.com. Decent album. It's a good album. And again, you know, just because I may score some of these albums lower, it's not like I never listen to them. I mean, they're all in rotation in my house. It's just some might get pulled a little more frequently than others. I only give 1 5 on this album, and that's Go. There are some 4s, Deserve, Rich, Enlighten. Those are really solid songs. Probably not my favorite, which is why I gave them 4s. A Legacy, Built-in Bastard Radar, Tumble Down the Years, and Interior Lulu, I gave all 3s. And then House, that song does nothing for me. I gave it a 2. So total of 31 points for an average of 3.44. Again, if I can get these graphics working, they'll be posted on the side. 2001, Anarachnophobia. Great album. I really enjoy this album. You know, after Radiation and after, you know, a couple, I don't want to say letdowns, but, you know, I thought they rebounded really well with Anarachnophobia. I gave 5s to Between You and Me, Quartz, Map of the World, When I Meet God, This is the 21st Century. I gave a 4 to Separate It Out. And I did give 3s to The Fruit of the Wild Rose and If My Heart Were a Ball, I'd Roll Uphill. So that's a total of 35 points divided by 8 songs. So that's 4.375. All right. I don't have the original pressing or the original release, but this is the Marbles box set released in 2004. I found scoring this album a little different, or a little difficult, I should say, because, you know, they have those Marbles 1, 2, 3, and 4. I mean, I can't even really score those. They're just little interludes between songs. So I left those out of the scoring. You know, 5s across the board on much of this album. The Invisible Man, Fantastic Place, Ocean Cloud, You're Gone, Neverland. The 4s for me, which are still really good songs. Genie, Don't Hurt Yourself, Angelina. I did give some 3s on this, though. The Only Unforgivable Thing, The Damage, Drilling Holes. You know, they're good songs. They just, you know, not my favorite off the album. So I did give that a score of 46. Now there are 15 tracks on there. Again, I'm not counting the little interludes, so I only divided it by 11, so that's a 4.18. Still, 4.18, solid, very good. Then, they went from Marbles to this. I don't know what to say about this album. I did not score a single 4 or 5 on this album. This album is nothing but 3s and 2s for me. The other half, Thank You, Whoever You Are, Somewhere Else, A Voice from the Past, those are all 3s. The rest of the album are just 2s. This was, whatever they were going for, just did not resonate with me. Just not a big fan of this album. Probably the one I listen to the least whenever I pull something out to listen to. All right, then they came out with Happiness is the Road. I did split this up into 2 separate albums. I know some CD versions may have, you know, incorporated both albums. But I had Essence and then The Hard Shoulder. I did score these separately just to keep it consistent going album to album. Essence, little too laid back for me. which is, maybe part of the concept of what they were going for. But Woke Up is the only song I gave a 5 on there. All the, a bunch of 4s though. Wrapped Up in Time, Liquidity, Nothing Fills the Hole, Trap the Spark, Happiness is the Road, Half Full Jam. Good songs. Good songs. I gave it a total of 39 points for an average of 3.55. Still, not a horrible score. Not my favorite, though. I still do listen to that quite a bit. Hard Shoulder, I did give a couple 4s on this. Whatever Is Wrong With You and Real Tears for Sale. The rest of the album is 3s with a couple of 2s mixed in there. So I gave that a total of 27 points divided by 9 songs. So that is a score of 3. But holistically, the 2 albums themselves, there was an average score, the total score of 66 with an average of 3.30 for the entire thing. All right. Next up, Sounds That Can't Be Made. Very good album. I think this was the album. I hadn't seen Marillion live for many, many, many years. And my wife made me get on Facebook. She actually created me a Facebook account back in 2012. And then I discovered that there's these Marillion weekends. So I went to my first Marillion weekend in 2013 up in Montreal. And my God, since then, it's been a whirlwind. I've been to almost, I'll get into that in another story. Because in a separate video, I plan on sharing my entire Marillion collection, which is maybe not as large as some other people that I've seen online, but it's pretty substantial. Between picture discs, live albums, the original releases, box sets, DVDs, and Blu-rays, I have quite a bit. So anyway, still had to talk about Sounds That Can't Be Made. Anyway, that was the first, they did this album in its entirety. They didn't do it, start to finish, but they did do songs spattered in the sets. So they did cover the entire album. Sounds That Can't Be Made, I gave that a 5. Sky Above the Rain, I gave that a 5. Gaza and Power and Invisible Ink, 4s. The rest of the album, I gave 3s. I mean, good songs. Not up there with 5s for me. Total of 31 points for an average of 3.85. All right, then they came out with Fear. I won't elaborate on the title, but that was their next release in 2016, I believe, 2016. The Levers. What a song. What a song. I actually got to see this live. Myself and some other friends went over to, we went to London in 2017 for their inaugural Royal Albert Hall show. For those of you in the Marillion community, we went with Nikki and Jerry. And then, of course, Rita was with us. Everybody knows Rita. But, it was very surreal. It was such an experience. It was such an experience. But to get back to the album itself, The Levers, I gave that a 5. Living in Fear, The New Kings, I gave those 4s. Still really good songs. El Dorado, there are parts of the song that are really emotional and really, grab you. Other parts of the song, though, I found it a little boring. Anyway, long story short, I gave that a score 21 divided by the 6 songs, so that's a 3.5. And then their latest album came back 22, An Hour Before It's Dark. Musically, they really turned a corner, in my opinion. The music on this album is so good. It is so powerful. And again, I know that a lot of this was written during lockdown. I understand a lot of the lyrics came from lockdown, but yeah. So I gave "Be Hard on Yourself," "Reprogram the Gene," "The Crow and the Nightingale," "Sierra Leone," "Care," all fives. "Murder Machines" gave it a 4. "Only a Kiss," I gave it a 3. Sorry. So that was a total of 32 points for an average of 4.75. So if everybody was following along, and depending on whether I got these graphics working or not, at the bottom, I had Somewhere Else with a 2.4 at number 18. Number 17, Radiation with a 3.22. Happiness is the Road. I did both of them together, if you remember. So that came in as a 3.3. Marillion.com, 3.44. Fear, 3.5. Fugazi, a 3.71. Sounds That Can't Be Made, I gave that a 3.875. So that came in at number 12. Holidays in Eden got a 4.1. And that was number 11. Now for the top 10, and again, I love all the Marillion albums. So, once you get above a certain point, it's pick and choose what you want to listen to. Everything strikes you different on a different day. So Holidays in Eden with a 4.1, Marbles, 4.18 at number 10, This Strange Engine, 4.25 at number 9. Number 8 was the debut, Script for a Jester's Tear at 4.33. Anarachnophobia comes in at number 7 at 4.375. At another 4.375 was Afraid of Sunlight at number 6. Despite the score, I do like Afraid of Sunlight a little better than Anarachnophobia, so it gets top billing over that. Brave came in at a 4.55 at number 5. Number 4, An Hour Before It's Dark, 4.57. And then my top 3 albums, pick and choose. They're fantastic. Season's End at a 4.875 at number 3. Misplaced Childhood comes in at a 4.9. And then Clutching at Straws at 5.0. So this is only my second YouTube video. This is one that I was thinking about doing for quite a while. So if anybody has any advice or any criticisms, I'm all ears. I'm new to this. I still have to get some decent equipment, but I definitely wanted to get this up and running. So I appreciate everyone's patience. So again, this was my album ranking. I understand music is subjective. You may like other albums better than I do. You may like certain songs better than I do. And I think it's subjective, but I think it's also, it depends on when you discovered the band and when I think a lot of it has to do with your age, when your first exposure was to the band. It's subjective. This is my opinion only. So let me know what your thoughts are down below. Let me know what your rankings are. But for now, I'll see you later. Have a good day.